Greetings! Michael King here from the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre, and I would like to share with you today about the impending world crisis from the perspective of the dynamics between spirit and evolution. Within any creation, spiritual forces periodically emanate out from the creative source or heart of that creation. These spiritual forces probe deeply into the material levels of that creation, then reverse phase and begin to return to their original levels. Whilst these forces are permeating the material realms of time and space, they lovingly embrace any and all evolving souls of material origin which are able to acknowledge and respond to these forces. This is the experience of spiritual awakening, and in alchemical terms this process is known as the mechanism of mercy. In this way, Source explores the limits of its creation and becomes self-aware of itself as it grows in both magnitude and experience. Within every creature there exists a dual nature. There are the inherent animal urges of survival plus procreation, together with the higher urges towards one's eternal well-being and source illumination. With the advancing evolution of any inhabited world, as more and more evolving souls become responsive to spirit with maturity, that is, with a willingness to partner with these rising spiritual forces and play an active part in their own evolutionary upliftment and acceleration, rather than expecting to be saved, so then do these cycles of descent and ascent of spiritual force emanations become more frequent. As these evolving souls increase in their own evolutionary self-determination through self-mastery and spirit perception, so do we see an increase in regularity of the appearance of great teachers and way-showers. This occurs because some advanced souls choose to ride these waves of rising spiritual force rather than to progress on to their universal and cosmic evolutions. In effect, this means that they also cyclically incarnate in time and space when these spiritual forces are on the rise and serve as mouthpieces for these rising spiritual energies. We are now in such a time. On a side note, it's important though to remember that there are also many con men out there who have jumped on this bandwagon, so discernment is vital. The New Age movement is full of con men. Now, these rising spiritual forces never force anyone to move with them, rather they only lead and encourage. If you are a willing student, if you truly desire to attain to high levels of spiritual illumination, then these rising spiritual forces will gently and lovingly lead you step by step along the path of spiritual progress. Each step you take must be taken willingly, intelligently, and in the spirit of cheerful cooperation. Anything which gives you orders or feeds your ego with stories of your grandeur or specialness is certainly not these rising spiritual forces. Instead, such will be just random dead humans in between incarnation, causing the same mischief that they make when they are alive. So once again, be careful, be discerning. Now then, remember also that the qualities exhibited by a soul that is truly partnering with spirit are unconditional love, joy, calmness, patience, tolerance, gentleness, kindness, meekness and temperance, which is wise restraint and moderation in action, thought and feeling. The flesh, or in other words, the inherent nature of the animal which you inhabit, does not naturally possess these qualities of spirit. It is only when the flesh is partnered and subdued by spirit that these qualities are exhibited. This is the process of enlightenment. The spiritual light that people talk about is actually the energy that is produced and radiated when you fuse spirit and matter together. So in actual fact, you are able to measure how enlightened a soul and the animal it is wearing is by how much spiritual light it emanates. Here on this planet, there is an abnormal extreme intensity in the internal conflict that exists between the animal nature and the spiritual natures. There are two major reasons for this. The first reason is that long ago, when humanity as a whole was perched upon the brink of a major shift into a more enlightened way of being, much like the turning point we are at now, there was an environmental calamity which caused an oceanic anoxic event. Oceanic anoxic events occur when the Earth's oceans become completely depleted of oxygen below the surface levels. Anoxic events cause mass extinctions. One of these mass extinctions occurred just when we were about to experience a huge shift in consciousness to a higher level of being. And the resulting intense competitive struggle for existence which followed caused a deep rift between the animal consciousness here and the rising spiritual forces. This is the cause of the deeply held beliefs that so many have here that we have been cast out and are being punished. It took millions of years to retrace our evolutionary steps. So in a real sense, we're kind of behind in our progress from what could reasonably have been expected for an evolving life wave at our stage of development. In other words, the cycles of emanations from creative source which we are experiencing now are a little too far advanced in spiritual terms for all but the most advanced souls to partner with, because there was this long period of no spiritual growth in real terms caused by having to retrace our steps after that mass extinction. This long period of no real advancement in our civilizations meant that our current societies do not provide an adequate infrastructure to support spiritual advancement where it needs to be to ride the current rising spiritual waves. A well-ordered, enlightened society which was free of the current dogmas and superstitions that currently hobble us would allow all who choose to easily partner with these spiritual forces and advance at a rapid rate. Sadly, we do not have such a society. Now, the second reason that there's so much conflict between the spiritual and the animal nature is that we are deprived of the refined spiritual responsive nature which is necessary to make enlightenment a simple process of education, because of the blind faith which is demanded of the followers of the world's great dogmas. It was actually the evolutionary setback caused by this ill-timed anoxic event which gave rise to these superstitious dogmas whose original function was to bridge this gap between the masses and the cyclic rising spiritual forces. It's kind of ironic. But sadly, they have been hijacked to become tools of control and oppression by generation upon generation of followers who have lost the original intent in the midst of ignorance and superstition. Many people today understand you cannot concentrate on the reverse of an idea. If you want to be healthy, then you don't concentrate on disease, but rather you concentrate on health. Energy follows thought. So it is no wonder that many of this world's great dogmas have produced centuries of oppression, fear, shame and ignorance, book burnings, people burnings and so on. Our planet is rapidly heading towards another anoxic event. All of the independent research is backing that up. This time, this anoxic event has been precipitated in just 150 years through our excessive use of fossil fuels. This next anoxic event could very well end life on this planet. We're looking maybe in 25 years' time this could happen. During our short lives, the two diverse and opposing forces of the material and spiritual natures can seldom be fully reconciled. Few manage to harmonise and unify these forces, yet it is possible. Even though we all need to live a material life, Even though none of us may escape the body and its necessities for life, nonetheless we are able to produce this union of matter and spirit alchemically. In order to create a spiritualized animal-human nature which is responsive to these rising spiritual forces in the way it would have been if that evolutionary setback had not have occurred. If a spiritual event is precipitated alchemically, which returns a great many to the state of evolutionary grace, which is similar to where we would have been by this stage, it will certainly trigger a mass awakening. This mass awakening will allow the bonds of ignorance and superstition to be broken. It will allow a willingness of the masses to end dependency on fossil fuels and an enlightened enthusiasm towards the necessary reorientation of consciousness which is necessary to return this planet to a state of being wherein all humans are naturally responsive to the cyclic rising spiritual forces which govern evolution. Such a world has no need for dogmas and governments which act as intermediaries between human consciousness and our creative source. This is a global solution to the current peril which besets us. I hope this gives you cause for contemplation and encourages you to be willing to conscientiously play your part in precipitating this alchemical event. Every Monday night, Australian time, we facilitate a global teleconference. It's just free. You can participate free of charge. You just got to pay for your phone call. Now, we will be sharing with you in this global teleconference just how you can participate in being part of the facilitation, the precipitation of this alchemical event to produce this major shift in consciousness. We'd love you to get involved. Go to the website and contact Nerida and make arrangements to be involved. There's a lot you can integrate just by watching the videos and relating with the source that these videos are operating out of. Hope to see you sometime soon at one of our Cosmosis transformational events. Thanks for listening. Keep on learning. Keep on loving. Hope to see you upstairs.